Hey everyone, welcome back to our final episode, our last of our 4 series, talking about events and your event marketing strategy. I'm glad to be joined once again by Mark. How are you doing?
Hey, Laurence, great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. We're kind of going full circle with our conversations. I think we started off a few weeks ago with, how do you decide whether events should be part of your marketing strategy? If they are, how do you prove ROI on them? Last time out, we were talking about the different teams involved in putting on a great event, how to communicate, collaborate with those key stakeholders. We're going to close things out with a look into the future. So crystal ball at the ready. But yeah, I think we're going to look into the future event marketing, what the next 3 to 5 years look like, all really with the aim of, people watching and listening, going away and thinking or starting to ask, how do I future proof my event marketing strategy? What's on the horizon? So we'll cover a few things off, but I guess to start the conversation, we touched on it in a previous episode, this idea of quantity versus quality.
Yes.
I think that's probably an important place to start. Personalized experiences, I think, are becoming more of like people's event strategy and making more about the community rather than a bigger crowd, right?
Totally. Totally.
So I'm interested in maybe over the last few years, have you seen that trend? Do you think it will continue to play out?
I have, Laurence. I see the future as quality versus quantity. I was chatting to a friend at a company, Databricks, who's doing incredible stuff and doing very well. And as opposed to the number of people at the event, they focus on a particular subset of their pipeline or their customer base. And the event is deemed a success if, I think it was 4,000 or something customers, if a good percentage of those customers in that locale are at the event. If they're not, it's not deemed a success. So this is quality versus the quantity scenario. And it always goes back to that discussion I've had about, is this event successful? It's not about the number of attendees, it's the amount of pipeline represented at that event. And that goes to the quality side of things. And so you've got to use data and AI to do that. And you touched on another of the big future trends, I think, full personalization. Again, I had a discussion the other day about using your customer service discussions with your customers as input to your content generation. Because if you can get all those conversations, and you can use AI to monitor this and ingest it into your content messages, your event is going to be so much more successful, right? Because you're using the voice of the customer to come up with what your theme should be for the event. All the questions customers are coming to your customer service line with, you want to be delivering that in a way to your customers rather than trying to reinvent the wheel of, what would the customer like to hear about? We've got all that data, and now with AI, you can monitor that and make use of it far more easily than you have been able to before. So I think personalization is another huge trend.
I mean, it translates, event marketing isn't unique in that statement, I don't think. Like
No, it's not.
personalization was talked about, 2 years ahead of the event marketing curve with digital marketing, with your
Yes.
audience segmentation and the ability that you have in ad platforms to really personalize the experience of users. But I think it definitely is translating over to the physical side of events as well.
It is, Laurence, because it comes to how do you provide an incredible experience to your customers? And again, using hotspots in your event space. If it's a physical event, what booths are customers going to, and how are they resonating with the messages from that booth, right? And how should you adjust that real time? If you're getting more people to a particular booth in your big event, right? Do you need to duplicate that booth in real time, right? In the next hour or so, you have double the number of sessions. Whereas an area that's not very busy, maybe you adjust, right? So this real-time traffic control, particularly in large events, is, I think, a really key element we're going to see much more of in the future, rather than set and forget, I've got the event space and it's
Yeah.
static for the few days.
Do you think that it's possible to translate that personalized experience, you've just mentioned it, into those larger events? Because I think there's probably maybe two arms, right? We talked about quality versus quantity. I definitely feel as though There are lots more smaller, more focused events happening to certain sub-segments of, a company's audience. You see a rise in the number of field and sales marketing roles and those kind of events. But then also maybe the personalization at larger events is a different question as well. Do you think it's possible to achieve both simultaneously?
I do, but I think you need to have a architecture of events for your company. At Cisco, we had huge events like Cisco Live, and then we had Cisco Connect, and then we had Engage. We had a hierarchy of those events, small, medium, large. Of course, providing a great experience at those various events is different depending on the size of the event and the expectations of the customers. You can more easily personalize on the smaller events, but with AI and automation, you can do a great job of personalization at the larger events. Across all of them, the thing that doesn't change is, are you providing a great experience to your customers? Are you informing them? Are you entertaining them? And are you making them feel welcome as part of your community, as part of your company? Those three elements are still the same. And hopefully with the rise of AI, you're going to be able to do a better job of providing the elements that are going to excite them in each of those three areas.
Well, I definitely have some more AI questions lined up, but I want to save that one to the end because I think, everyone's keen about that buzzword in a minute. But if quality and quantity is one consideration around the future of events, I'm also interested to get your take on whether you felt there was a bit of a milestone or moment in the events industry when the pandemic hit, because we were suddenly forced to consider how we would run events when that in-person meetup wasn't possible.
Yes.
And you saw the rise of loads of technology. Hopin famously valued at $1 billion, then suddenly crashed, and all this tech. But I think it's still translating into how we're running events now.
It does. The future is hybrid, right? Anyone who is just running a physical event or just an online event is missing a trick here. The one I always talk about is Cisco Live Melbourne, the biggest event for Cisco in Asia Pac. When the pandemic hit in Australia, we were due to be doing it in a month's time, and we cancelled the month before, right? Because we didn't want the risk. We pivoted to online in those 3 weeks. Okay. And we had many, many more people than we ever anticipated online. And we learned a lot doing it. We learned how to build and package content in a digital way. We learned how to reuse content in an overall campaign way and not just a one-off event. So it taught us a lot of things. And I think it taught a lot of companies a lot of things. Now, every event that I recommend marketers do should always be hybrid, should be physical plus online, because you're just increasing your reach doing that. And of course, the experience needs to be different, needs to be compelling online, which used to be harder, right? Because you say it's easier to have a great experience live. That's true. But you can make online experiences more personalized and just as exciting with the right guest speakers and the right events and, audience engagement, etc. So I think that's absolutely key. And the pandemic taught us we could do that.
I think it's the flexibility side of it as well that you're giving attendees as well. You mentioned reach. I guess it comes under the same umbrella, but you're giving people that are interested and want to be part of that community you're trying to build the option to engage in a way that they might not have been able to if they were on the other side of the world and you ran it purely in person.
You're right. And, a lot of people still work from home. I forget what the percentages are, but, people are very comfortable attending an event online as opposed to, in the London scenario, a big commute, etc. If they wanted to get the essence and see the keynotes from an event in a particular one thing, maybe they're going to do that from their home office and not, do several hours commuting.
Yeah. The one thing you do miss out on, though, is that B2B rock concert that we talked about in episode 1. Like, you're not going to get that if you're in your home office.
You're not going to get that, which is a shame, right? Because you're not going to get the entertainment, you're not going to get the rock star performance, and you're not going to get the same sense of community.
Yeah, I definitely think we talked about AI as well, so I'm going to bring in the buzzword again, but I do get a sense that the value of events has increased because of the advent of AI. Like, it remains the one in-person connection. So if we're talking about like future trends, I wonder if we're brave enough to predict that maybe events might become more of a key player in a marketing strategy than they were previously.
Absolutely. I don't think it's very brave to predict that. I mean, I think with the rise of AI, the less importance of websites and search marketing, because it's going to be turned on its head, that human connection is going to become far more important. The two areas of marketing which I think are key in that are events and customer advocacy. Okay. Who are your customers who love your products? And how do you leverage those customers to promote your products with the other customers you're targeting? Those two things are really key, and they're things that can be helped by AI, but they can't be replaced by AI.
I think it was the 2024 or 2025 Gartner CMO report that stated events was the largest spending offline channel at an average of 17% of overall
Mhm.
budget. I'd be very interested to follow 2026, 2027. Does that 17% creep over or up to a third, for example?
I, I think it will, because my sense is certainly in the tech space, there's a lot of reduction in headcount. AI doing more, people using AI more. So the overall marketing budget is maybe freeing up from fixed cost to variable costs, less people and more variable spend. And where are you going to spend that? You're going to spend that in those human connection areas, because if you lose that, it's a problem, right? Because you might lose the sense of community with your customers. Okay. And you don't want to lose that, because that's a huge loyalty factor and a huge differentiation factor.
Yeah. Parking AI again for 1 second. We should definitely talk about sustainability.
Yes.
I've experienced this in companies I work for in the events industries, like even over the past 5 years, when you would go for a request to tender, and in our case for working on a certain event, like the ESG compliance, that was maybe 50-50 on, the term sheet and how we would have to present and make sure we were, adhering to, now became, 100% of all requests for tenders. It's no
Yes.
longer a nice to have, it's becoming part of the ask. And I don't
Yes.
know whether your experience at Cisco or wherever it was, that conversation with those teams we've talked about in previous episodes became more of the forefront rather than a secondary consideration.
You're right. It used to be a nice to have, and people would go through the motions of doing it. It became a must to do that because the customers demanded it. The use of plastic in events, and more the use of recyclable cardboard, et cetera, et cetera. The customers were demanding that, and they expect the brands that they're going to those events for to be doing the right thing by the planet. Now, I would contend that with the political climate it is in the world at the moment and less ESG focus, it's probably declined a little bit, but I think that will just be an aberration for a blip, because I think over time, brands want to be seen to be doing the right thing by the people of the world and the planet, and it's pretty dangerous not to.
Do you find from like internally having to put on these events that your ways of working changed, or you had to bring in certain new team members? I'm thinking specifically around, when it comes to sourcing your suppliers, like the ability to make sure that a new supplier that you want for an event, or an existing supplier you've worked with the past 5 years, is adhering to policies that you're now setting out and saying we must stick to these. Like,
We
was there a
You're right.
meeting you had where you put that and said we now have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
start doing this?
Well, big companies like Cisco have a environmental leader, right? How are they going to get to carbon neutral by, I think it was 2030 in Cisco's case? And so they have a whole team working on that with very clear guidelines to vendors and people supplying us. Here's what you've got to do to be Cisco compliant from an environmental point of view. So we had lots of help with that. But of course, some suppliers didn't step up and others did, right? So those who don't step up get swapped out.
Must be harder for smaller brands who don't have that environmental person. Suddenly, they're pushing for it. It becomes a new part of their culture for sustainability, and they've suddenly got to vet and think about all the suppliers that they've been using or want to use going forward.
It does, Laurence, but the other thing is people can take practical steps on it, right? All the physical things people use in events, right? How do you take those practical steps, and rather than ensuring that you're compliant from an environmental point of view, if you're a small business, maybe you don't have the wherewithal to find out where all your suppliers are in terms of when they're going to become carbon neutral. That might be too much to ask, right? But just the experience at the event, do you have environmental concerns top of mind? So you're not going to have plastic cups, you're not going to have straws, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to make sure that the stuff's recycled. I think all those practical steps are easy to do, whether you work for a large or a small company.
Yeah. I'm keen to move. We've got a few minutes left. I'm keen to kind of get back to the AI topic potentially and dig a bit deeper on there. And I'm going to be a little bit biased here and maybe lead with a leading question, but your honest opinion, as always, is useful. I feel like the events industry has been a bit behind other industries in like their adoption of new technology. We have leading platforms like Cvent that I'm sure a lot of people listening will be used to, but I am utterly surprised when the people that we speak to at Lumix come to us and talk about how they've been running events for the past decade or however long it might be, and they show us a spreadsheet with all of the suppliers that they use and the budgets that are tracked in there, and it's 10 tabs long, the formatting's horrible, and it's managed by a couple of people.
Yes.
And one thing I think going into the future is that there is a requirement and a need for something to help people manage their suppliers, source their suppliers, and contract with them in a tool that was built for them. Give me your honest opinion, but I do see that as a big like black hole.
I totally agree with you. I think people who are in events often feel like they know how everything should be done. Here's the way they've done it for some time, and they make do with what they had, right? The spreadsheet, etc. It's crazy, right? Because the percentage of the marketing spend, as you just pointed out earlier, is quite high, maybe 17, 18%. There's a lot of money being spent, right? You want to make sure it's being spent in the right way, and you want to make sure you're tracking and managing it correctly. So again, I totally agree with you. It's going to be a huge trend, and anyone who's not doing that, they're just simply not maximizing the return, right? Because this is a big spend. You want to make sure you're doing it effectively as possible. And if you're not, the finance department's going to be concerned with the marketing department not doing that, right?
I think we default to our human nature of trust, and we've worked with X supplier for the last 2 or 3 years. They've done a good job and we'll continue to use them. And that's fine. But, when you're expanding your event strategy and you need to find more suppliers, like beyond a Google search, how are you finding them?
Totally.
There's room for AI, there's room for new software in that whole process, I believe.
I was always on a mantra in the marketing roles I had about zero-based budgeting. Every year, you should go back to zero-based budgeting, analyze everything you're doing and work out, is it all providing value to the business? And if it's not, start from scratch. What are the 10 most important things I need to do with my marketing this year? And likewise in events, and that goes to suppliers. Even though you loved suppliers, you should check, are they environmentally compliant? Are they still providing us great value for money? Are they providing an incredible experience to our customers? You should be asking that every year. Now, it might be a quick conversation, right? Maybe you've checked the boxes on that, but maybe you think, wow, they're actually not. And there's this new supplier here that is offering something more.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond the suppliers as well. Maybe you've got some thoughts on this, but where else do you see AI and technology in the next 3 to 5 years, like being induced into the event process from sourcing through to execution? We touched on personalisation, but I wonder if there's anything else in that end-to-end journey where you think there's room for improvement.
Absolutely. I think AI can be used in terms of monitoring your suppliers and your inputs to every event to determine, are they still the best of breed and providing you with the best return on investment? There's no reason with the right data you can't be doing that. And you can have an agent monitoring each of your big suppliers, for example, to ensure that they are providing world-class services to you and that you're using the optimal mix.
Do you have any tips for, I think we're both agreed here, there's room for technology in that whole end-to-end process. It's going to be led by AI. We're going to see it in the next 3 to 5 years, but as marketers, I find it really difficult because events is just one channel. You've got everything else you're trying to look at. How you might stay on top of like what's the best new tool or AI software that we should be looking at and implementing, because it's going to be everywhere.
It is going to be everywhere, but the effectiveness of AI depends on your core data. Okay. The AI tools, etc., that you use. I still think it comes back to this central human leadership, right, around your entire marketing strategy. What are you trying to achieve for the company? How many dollars do you have to spend? How are you going to make that split? Okay. And once you've decided that, you should use the AI tools to check, are you best in class with this mix of spend? Is there anything new that you should do? And then monitoring all your suppliers and the way you're doing things, that it's the most effective way. And there's going to be, many tools for many suppliers to do this. Some from big suppliers like the Salesforce of the world, and others from data companies, who's going to be, the paradigm may be, the apps may become less important and the data may become more,
Yeah.
which is another big topic.
Yeah, I was going to say we could do a whole episode on data architect, whatever it might be. But yeah, again, I think we've identified a few things here. If we were going to wrap things up and say, what are the key takeaways for an event marketer listening to this, what would you put down as the three bullet points, do you think?
I would always say, what is the experience you're providing for your customers? That's job one. Are you applying all the tech that you have? And are you trying stuff? Because the challenge with AI is not enough people are trying things and testing and optimizing over time. People are waiting for this grand, hero app that might solve everything, but it's not quite here yet. And then thirdly, be curious and open-minded about how do you drive business through your event. Okay. Not just the number of attendees, but what is the pipeline represented?
Thanks for joining again, Mark.
My pleasure, Laurence. Lovely to see you again.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll cross paths in a future one-off episode if we feel that something in the industry has sparked thought or consideration. But I know we've got a few more guest appearance episodes lined up, so I'm sure we'll be chatting again.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Laurence.
Thanks, Mark. Bye now.